The archives of most countries fascinate most people. The secrets and facts hidden within are tempting to both historians and conspiracy theorists alike. Russia's state archives are one of the most fascinating in the world. And to talk a little bit more about what lies within them, RT got the chance to talk to the head of the Russian State Archive, Sergey Mironenko. Mr. Mironenko, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us. Yet another anniversary of the Second World War is upon us. Do you think that perhaps revealing more documents from the archives could end the debate as to who started the war, who was to blame? Are there any ones that are more responsible, and could anything have gone differently?
There are two questions here. First, I am thoroughly convinced that the more documents are declassified, especially those related to events that date more than 50 years back, the more clearly and fully history will be able to answer the question. Now, the second question, about whether the arguments will stop, no. They will not. Unfortunately, there are people who will stick to their point of view in spite of obvious facts. That, however, is a matter of belief, not scientific knowledge. If we are talking about scientific knowledge, then of course, knowing everything about a historical event takes having full access to historical sources.
Now, the Soviet side, of course, played a key role in defeating the Nazi movement. Do you think that Stalin and the cult of Stalin had a lot of influence on that fact?
Well, indeed. The Eastern Front played the decisive role in World War II and in the Great Patriotic War as well. I am very glad we opened an exhibition in Cannes this year devoted to the Great Patriotic War. As far as I know, the exhibition has been a great success. Now, the role of Stalin. Yes, sure, Stalin was head of the Council of Ministers and chaired the State Defense Committee. He coordinated and managed all military operations throughout the Great Patriotic War. Let's face it, though, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, whatever one might think of it, postponed the beginning of war, yet at the time gave Germany the time to mobilize Europe's economy. Sadly, we wasted that time instead of preparing. We could have been better prepared for the war. Stalin did not believe Hitler would ever attack the USSR. Recent publications confirm that 100%. Just take the report of State Security Minister Merkelov as of June 17, 1941, quoting a source in the Luftwaffe General Staff as saying that, quote, war will begin in 5 days, unquote. It is only now that we know of Stalin's facsimile resolution that said, Comrade Merkelov, why don't you tell that source to piss off? It's not a source or informer, it's a misinformer. 5 days before the beginning of the war, Stalin still couldn't believe it would begin. This, I think, explains the depression that he went through in the first week of the war, not even appearing in the Kremlin. When top Soviet officials came to him because they couldn't imagine setting up a defense without Stalin, he thought they came to arrest him. He uttered his famous phrase, Lenin left us a great empire, and we f***ed it all up. Finally, after all, Stalin managed to brace himself and to lead the country in its defense, and his role in the Great Patriotic War cannot be crossed out.
We have a whole period of time in this country that basically carries Stalin's name, and yet today many almost draw a parallel between Stalinism and neo-Nazism. Do you think that's a justified comparison?
Why neo-Nazism? I think it's Nazism, isn't it? Well, the comparison is quite appropriate in my opinion. It's not by chance that the ruling party in fascist Germany was called the National Socialist Party. In the Soviet times, if you remember, it was called National Socialistic, as it was somewhat awkward to use the word socialism in the name of a fascist party. There are many parallels. Let's face it, Stalin liked Hitler. He liked his way of getting down with his political opponents. Anastas Mikoyan would tell this story. After that night when Hitler did away with his comrade Röhm, Stalin came to a session of Politburo and said, that's the way to deal with political enemies. According to Mikoyan, a dead silence fell in the room as everybody realized what he meant. That, however, is largely the job of historians, to compare those two regimes and figure out what was similar and what was different. I can say, for example, that comparing Soviet and Nazi concentration camps is an incorrect thing to do, because Soviet camps were not extermination camps, while the Nazi ones were. Well, yes, perhaps more people died in the Soviet camps than in Nazi ones, but extermination wasn't the goal of Soviet camps.
For many people of the older generations, there's a difference in how they react to Stalin. Some believe that he's a hero that won the Soviet Union its victory in the Second World War. For others, he's a tyrant and a despot. Now, do you think that one of those definitions is more justified than the other, or was he all of those things?
Ну, вы знаете, люди стремятся к простым ответам.
Well, you know, people are prone to seeking simple answers to very complicated questions. Unfortunately, life is always far more complicated than that. Of course, who would accept the heinous atrocities perpetrated by Stalin? I think nobody in their right mind could do that. At the same time, we can't deny that Stalin was at the helm of the Soviet Union in those tough times, and it was he who largely determined our victory. The most important thing is for people to know the truth. Let me give you a small but telling example. Moscow Mayor Yuri Lushkov was yearning to decorate Moscow streets with Stalin posters for the 65th anniversary of the victory. I think it would be good for him to know that it was Stalin who abolished the Victory Day celebrations in 1947. It was Stalin who issued a decree according to which the 9th of May ceased to be a holiday. It was him as well who, several months earlier, had cancelled payments for war decorations received by war veterans. Writer Daniil Granin, who I had a chance to talk to, remembered very well what a great insult that was to the veterans. Just why Stalin did that is clear, though. He wanted to make it clear to the victors who had walked across Western Europe and returned to Russia. Just keep in mind, guys, that you are not the main heroes. After you come back to a poverty-stricken country from Western countries, don't think much about it.